What do you do when your life starts to feel smaller every day? When the heat won't lift, the bills keep piling up, and even your own apartment doesn't feel like it belongs to you anymore? In Phoenix, a woman stood with her key already in the lock, a worn-out tote bag hanging from her wrist, and a hallway light above her door sputtering like it was running out of patience. On her kitchen table, the eviction notice sat where she'd left it, creased, smudged, impossible to ignore. She wasn't chasing a miracle. She wasn't even asking for comfort. She just wanted one normal night. One night where she could breathe without doing the math in her head. She pulled the door open, stepped into the hallway, and that's when something small happened. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to stop her from walking away. Her name was Maya, 32. She worked the front register at a grocery store a few miles from downtown Phoenix, close enough to see the skyline on clear mornings, far enough to feel like it belonged to someone else. Customers knew her in a shallow way. They knew the sound of her voice when she said, "Hi," and "Do you need a receipt?" They knew her hands moved fast, like she didn't want to hold anyone up. What they didn't see was the version of Maya that showed up after her shift. The bus ride home always felt longer than it should have. She'd sit by the window, knees angled inward, tote bag tucked tight against her side. Not because she was scared of the city, because she was scared of her own thoughts when everything got quiet. That evening, the Phoenix heat clung to her the moment she stepped off the bus. It followed her into the building's stairwell, into the narrow second-floor hallway, into the air around her door. The hallway always smelled the same: old carpet, detergent that never quite worked, warm dust that lived in the corners. And the light above her unit flickered like it had been doing it for weeks. Blink, hold, blink again. Inside, on the kitchen table, was the paper she kept trying not to look at. An eviction notice, folded and unfolded so many times the creases had turned soft. 48 hours, 2 days. Maya read it until the words stopped feeling like words and started feeling like a weight. She gripped the edge of the table just to keep her hands from shaking. She wasn't thinking about a fresh start. She wasn't planning anything big. She was thinking about how to make it through the next night with her pride intact and her lungs full. Maya didn't wake up that morning thinking she would do anything dramatic. She just woke up tired. The kind of tired that sits behind your eyes before you even stand up. The eviction notice was still on the table when she passed through the kitchen. She pressed her palm over it for a second, flat, like she could calm it down. The paper stayed wrinkled anyway. She went to work. At the grocery store, she slipped into the rhythm she knew by heart. Beep, bag, receipt, smile. Have a good one. Take care. The air conditioning above her register hummed too loud, and every time it kicked on, she felt her shoulders jump like she'd been startled. Near the end of her shift, she checked her phone on her break and saw a message from her manager. "Hey Maya, we're cutting hours. Don't come in tomorrow." She stared at it longer than she needed to, like an extra second might change the words. No shift tomorrow meant no cushion. No cushion meant she was right back at that table with the clock ticking. When she clocked out, she walked to the little corner market by the bus stop, the one with the faded soda posters in the window and the bell that never rang right. She grabbed the cheapest things she could: a pack of noodles, a carton of eggs, a small bottle of water. At the register, she slid her card, declined. She tried again, slower, eyes fixed on the keypad like focus could fix it. Declined. Heat rushed into her face. Not the Phoenix kind, something sharper. She could feel someone behind her shift their weight. She could hear a sigh that wasn't even aimed at her, but it still landed. "I'm sorry," she whispered, already backing away. She left the food on the counter and stepped outside, blinking hard, as if the sunlight could burn the embarrassment off. On the bus ride home, she kept her gaze on the window, watching the streets roll by, dry palms, pale stucco walls, shimmering asphalt. Phoenix looked beautiful in a hard and different way, like it didn't notice people breaking quietly. That night, back in her apartment, she opened the closet and pulled out an old duffel bag, the one with the busted zipper she kept closed with a paper clip. Not a moving bag, not a new life bag, just a get through tonight somewhere else bag. She packed light without thinking too much. 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, her charger, a photo she almost left behind, and the last cash she had, folded tight like it needed protection. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the eviction notice again. Her plan wasn't heroic. It was small, private. She would leave the building for a while, get out of the apartment, out of the heat-soaked hallway, out of the feeling of being trapped. She didn't even know where she'd go, just somewhere that didn't smell like warm dust and panic. When she finally stood, she adjusted the duffel bag on her shoulder and looked toward the door. Outside, the hallway light flickered through the peephole glow. Blink, hold, blink. She took a breath and reached for the knob. And that's when the night started to change, before she even knew it had. Maya stepped into the hallway, and the warm air met her like someone opening an oven. The light above her door blinked once, held, then blinked again. She shifted the duffel bag higher on her shoulder and tried to walk like a person who had somewhere normal to be. Like this was just errands. Like she wasn't carrying her whole week in a bag with a paper clip holding the zipper shut. But her mind kept replaying the day in pieces, sharp, out of order. The eviction notice. The manager's text. The card machine lighting up with that one word she couldn't stop seeing. Declined. By the time she reached the stairs, her throat felt tight, not tears. Just pressure, like her body was bracing for impact that never came. Outside, Phoenix was still hot, even at night. Streetlights washed the sidewalk a dusty yellow. The asphalt held the day's heat like it didn't know how to let go. Across the road, the bus stop sat under a buzzing light. Empty bench, torn ad on the glass. A place people waited when they had no better place to be. Maya paused at the bottom step. She told herself she was just going to sit there for a while. Cool down, think, let the night pass without her apartment squeezing her. She took one step toward the sidewalk, and then she heard it. Not a shout, not a crash. A soft, rough sound behind her, like someone coughing too hard or trying to pull air through something heavy. Maya stopped. Her first instinct was to pretend she didn't hear it, because if she turned around, it would become real. And she didn't feel like she had anything real left to give. But the sound came again, thinner this time, closer. She looked back at the building's hallway, a long, narrow strip of flickering light and closed doors. For a second, she stood there with her jaw clenched, arguing with herself without moving. Then her feet betrayed her. She turned and went back inside, slowly, like she was walking toward trouble on purpose, even though all she wanted was to be left alone. Maya followed the sound down the hallway, moving carefully, like the carpet might give way under her. Near the far end, an older man was slumped against the wall. His back kept sliding lower, inch by inch, like his body had run out of strength mid-step. His head leaned to the side at an angle that made Maya's stomach turn. The light above him flickered, turning his face pale, then darker, then pale again. His apartment door was half shut, not locked, just barely open, like he tried to get inside and didn't make it. Maya had seen him around, slow steps, a cane sometimes. Always the same careful grip on his mailbox key. People in the building called him Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, she said, keeping her voice gentle, like you do with someone who might startle. Hey, can you hear me? His mouth moved, but no words formed. His eyes fluttered, fighting to stay open. Maya glanced at the other doors. Nothing, no footsteps. No, is everything okay? No curious faces. Just the building's low, constant hum and the faint rattle of an AC unit somewhere behind a wall. Her chest tightened. Her first thought came out ugly and honest. I can't do this tonight. Then the second thought followed right behind it, just as honest. If I walk away, I'll carry it. She pulled her phone out with fingers that didn't want to cooperate. For a second, she just stared at the screen, like she was waiting for someone else to appear and take over. No one did. So she called. Her voice sounded smaller than she meant it to. Hi, my neighbor's on the floor. He looks really sick. I think he can't breathe, right? Please send someone. She knelt beside him, unsure where to put her hands, afraid of doing the wrong thing. It's okay, she said, even though her own heartbeat was loud in her ears. I'm here. Just stay with me. Minutes stretched. The duffel bag strap cut into her shoulder. Her arms started to ache from holding the phone. Once, she looked toward the stairwell, toward the exit, toward the bus stop outside, and felt that old urge to step away from everything. But then Mr. Harris made that rough sound again, and Maya leaned closer, talking softly like her voice could hold him in place. Whatever kind of night she thought she was walking into, it wasn't that anymore. Now it was this hallway, this man, this moment that wouldn't let her stay a stranger. The waiting felt endless. Maya stayed on the floor with her knees pressed into the rough carpet. She kept talking in a low voice, not because she knew the right words, but because silence felt like something that could swallow them. Mr. Harris, keep looking at me, okay? She murmured. Help is coming. The hallway light blinked again, and the shadows jumped across the walls. Somewhere behind one of the doors, a TV played too loud for the hour, then went quiet. Mia listened for sirens. Nothing yet. She swallowed and tried to steady her breathing, the way you do when you don't want the panic to show on your face. Then a door opened a few feet away, just a crack at first. A woman's face appeared, hair messy, eyes wide, clutching her phone like it was a shield. She looked from Maya to the man on the floor, and her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, is that Mr. Harris? Maya nodded, keeping her voice calm even though her stomach was tight. He collapsed. I called an ambulance. The woman hesitated, half in, half out, like she wanted to retreat back into her apartment and pretend she never saw any of it. But she didn't. She stepped out in socks and a thin jacket, glancing up and down the hallway. I think I have his daughter's number. He gave it to me once, just in case. Maya blinked. You do? The woman nodded quickly, already scrolling. I'm not sure it's saved right, but I'll try. Another door opened. A young guy in a t-shirt and basketball shorts came out rubbing his eyes. He looked confused for a second, then his face changed when he saw Mr. Harris. Do you need water? He asked, and it came out awkward, like he didn't know what people were supposed to say in moments like this. Maya almost smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was real. A few minutes ago, she felt invisible in this building. Now there were people in the hallway, watching, helping in small ways, offering what they had. Just stay close, Maya said. If he starts to slide, tell me. And keep an ear out for the sirens. The woman turned her phone to speaker for a second, then stepped away to talk quietly. And in that thin little pause between the ambulance that still hadn't arrived and the night Maya was trying to outrun, something inside her eased. Not happiness, not relief. Just a small internal shift, like her thoughts finally hit a wall and stopped spiraling. She looked down at her hands. They were still trembling, but less. Because for the first time all day, she wasn't only thinking about what she didn't have. She was thinking about what she could do. And somehow, that was enough to keep her right there on the carpet, waiting with him. The ambulance arrived fast, boots on concrete, a stretcher rolling, calm voices that didn't match the urgency in Maya's chest. Two paramedics knelt beside Mr. Harris. One checked his pulse and asked questions in a steady tone, like steadiness was part of the job. "Sir, can you hear me?" "Squeeze my hand if you can." Maya scooted back to give them room, the duffel bag still hanging from her shoulder like a reminder that she'd been headed somewhere else. One of the paramedics looked up at her. "Are you family?" Maya shook her head. "No, I live down the hall." He nodded like that meant something. "You did the right thing calling. You probably saved him a lot of trouble. It shouldn't have hit her so hard, but it did. Because she couldn't remember the last time anyone said, 'You did the right thing' to her, without adding something after it. The woman who'd stepped out with the phone hurried back over. "I reached his daughter," she said. "She's coming to the hospital. She asked who called." Maya swallowed. Her throat felt tight again. "I did." The woman looked at her for a beat. No pity, no judgment, just a quiet kind of respect. "Thank you," she said. Most people wouldn't have stopped. When the stretcher started toward the elevator, Maya surprised herself. "I can go too," she heard herself say. Just until his daughter gets there. No one argued with her. No one told her she didn't belong. At the hospital, the air felt like another world. Cool, bright, smelling faintly of disinfectant and old coffee. The waiting room chairs were hard. A TV played something no one watched. Maya sat with her hands in her lap. The duffel bag rested by her feet. For the first time all night, the building wasn't humming in her ears. About 20 minutes later, a woman rushed in, hair pulled back, face tight with fear. "Dad," she asked a nurse. "Where is he?" Maya stood, a little unsure. "Are you his daughter?" The woman turned. "Yes, I'm Rachel." I'm Maya," she said. "I live in his building." "I found him in the hallway." Rachel's face changed in layers, shock first, then relief, then something that looked a lot like she was trying not to cry. "Oh," she breathed. "Thank you." "Thank you so much." Maya tried to wave it off. "Anybody would have called." Rachel shook her head firm. "No, not anybody." They waited together until a doctor came out later and said Mr. Harris would be okay. He'd need rest. Monitoring, someone checking on him for a while. Rachel pressed her fingers to her forehead. The adrenaline was leaving, and what was underneath it looked like exhaustion. "I'm supposed to be at work tomorrow," she said quietly. "And I don't have anyone nearby who can." Maya hesitated. She could feel her old instinct to step back, to say, "That's not my life. That's not my responsibility." But she'd already knelt on that hallway carpet. She'd already stayed. "I can check on him," Maya said, the words coming out plain. "Just for a couple days." "If you want." Rachel looked at her like she wasn't sure she heard correctly. "You would do that?" Maya nodded once. "I can." Rachel reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. "I run a small home care office," she said. "Mostly scheduling and check-ins for seniors. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, and people matter to us." Maya blinked at the card. Rachel glanced at her, careful. "Do you have work right now?" "Yeah," Maya said. "But my hours just got cut." Rachel's eyes sharpened, not nosy, just understanding. "How bad?" Maya let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Bad enough." Rachel nodded slowly, like she was already thinking. "Okay. When things calm down tonight, would you sit with me for 10 minutes? Just coffee. I want to talk about options." Maya looked down at the card in her hand. A few hours ago, tomorrow felt like a wall. Now it felt like a door someone had finally touched from the other side. And for the first time in a long time, Maya didn't feel pushed out of the world. She felt invited back into it. Maya sat with Rachel in the small hospital cafe. The coffee tasted burnt, like it had been sitting too long. The chairs wobbled. A vending machine hummed in the corner like it was annoyed to be awake. But the air was cool, and for the first time all day, Maya wasn't sweating through her shirt. Rachel didn't interrogate her. She asked simple things: where Maya lived, what shifts she usually worked, whether she had family in town. Maya kept her answers short at first. She wasn't used to being asked with real attention. Most people ask questions just to fill space. Rachel wasn't filling space. As Maya talked, her shoulders dropped little by little, like her body was finally getting permission to stop racing. Then Rachel said, "Can I tell you something without it sounding weird?" Maya nodded, cautious. "My dad talks about you," Rachel said. Maya blinked. "He does." Rachel smiled a little, like she'd been holding that back. "He calls you the quiet one. The cashier who never rushes him. The one who holds the door even when it's hot and everyone's irritated." Maya stared at her cup. "That's..." "No," she stopped. She didn't even know how to deny it without sounding defensive. Rachel leaned forward, serious now. "A couple months ago, he mentioned his knee was acting up. He said you carried his groceries up the stairs when the elevator was broken." Maya's throat tightened. She remembered it, how heavy the bags were, how she pretended not to notice him shaking. "That was one time," Maya said softly. Rachel shook her head. "It was enough. My dad doesn't say things like that about people unless he means it." Maya sat very still. All day she'd felt like life was narrowing in on her, like she was one more problem no one had time for. And now she was hearing something she hadn't heard in a long time. "You mattered before tonight." Rachel reached into her bag and tore a small receipt paper from her wallet, something with a sticky note on it. She wrote an address and a number, then slid it across the table. "This is my office," she said. "Come by tomorrow afternoon. If you can, even if it's just to talk." Maya almost laughed under her breath because tomorrow had felt like a joke earlier. Rachel hesitated, then added, "And about your housing. I'm not going to promise you something big, but I work with a local group that helps seniors and low-income tenants when things get urgent. They've helped with emergency extensions and payment plans. They move faster than most places." Maya's hands tightened around her cup. She opened her tote and pulled out the eviction notice, creased, smudged, the edges soft from being handled too much. Rachel read it, then nodded once, like she'd seen 100 of them and still didn't like any of them. "Okay," she said. "In the morning, we'll call. We'll see what options you actually have. Not everything will be fine. Not don't worry. Just we'll call." Maya let out a breath that felt like it came from the bottom of her ribs. When they finally stood to leave the cafe, Maya looked down at her duffel bag on the floor. It still had her things in it, but it didn't feel like an escape hatch anymore. It felt like something she didn't need to carry alone. On the ride back to the building near dawn, the city looked washed out and quiet. And when Maya stepped into her second-floor hallway, the same light above her door was still flickering. Blink, hold, blink, only now it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a stubborn little thing refusing to go out. Maya didn't wake up to a new life the next morning. The apartment was the same size. The sink still had a slow drip. The air conditioner still kicked on like it was struggling to keep up with the heat. And the eviction notice was still on the table, right where she'd left it. But Maya sat down in front of it differently. Her shoulders weren't up around her ears. Her jaw wasn't clenched so tight it hurt. She still felt fear, of course she did, but it wasn't the only thing in the room anymore. On the counter beside her was a napkin from the hospital cafe, an address, a phone number, a name written in quick ink that hadn't had time to fade. Maya ran her thumb over the ink once, like she needed proof it was real. Then she did something small and practical and brave in the only way she knew how. She picked up her phone and made a call. Later that afternoon, she took the bus across town to Rachel's office, an ordinary little place in a strip mall, with sun-faded blinds and a handwritten sign taped to the door that said, Please knock. Inside, it smelled like paper and cheap air freshener. Phones rang. Someone laughed in the back room. Rachel wasn't dressed like a hero. She looked tired too, but she waved Maya in like she belonged there. They talked through options the way adults do when there isn't magic, only forms and deadlines and numbers that don't stretch far enough. Rachel called the housing group she'd mentioned, put Maya on speaker. Asked questions Maya wouldn't have known to ask. There was no instant rescue, but there were steps. A short extension request, a payment plan possibility, a list of documents Maya could pull together, a follow-up call scheduled for the next morning. And then Rachel pointed down the hall. "We need someone part-time," she said. "Mostly check-in calls, reminders, scheduling. It's not glamorous, but it's steady." Maya nodded slowly, trying not to let her face show too much. Steady. That word felt like water. By the end of the week, nothing looked perfect from the outside. Maya still rode the same bus. Phoenix was still Phoenix, but she had 2 extra shifts lined up through Rachel's office. She had a plan written on paper. She had dates, names, and a place to walk into if she didn't understand something. And one night, back in her apartment, she noticed something that almost made her laugh. The hallway light outside her door was still flickering, but she wasn't staring at it like it was counting down her life anymore. She was just thinking someone should probably change that bulb, because sometimes the turning point isn't loud. Sometimes it's the moment you stop thinking you have to disappear in order to survive, and you take the next right step while you're still scared. If you want more stories like this, quiet stories where the turning point isn't a speech, it's a small choice, subscribe and stay with us. Next time, I'll tell you about someone who was sure they'd become invisible, until one ordinary message proved they weren't. And if you're in a hard season right now, just remember, some doors don't swing open. Sometimes they crack, slowly, stubbornly, like a hallway light that keeps flickering, refusing to go out.